forced to live in daily terror. The fate of thousands of children in industrial schools, mainly run by Catholic orders in 20th century Ireland. The Child Abuse Commission, 10 years after it was set up, today published its 5-volume report, and it makes grim reading. Children were subjected to institutional, physical and emotional abuse. They were also exploited economically. Sexual abuse was endemic in boys' institutions, and leaders of religious congregations protected the perpetrators in their ranks. The state, responsible for inspecting the schools, generally dismissed or ignored the complaints.
Well, this proves that this inquiry is a farce if it's treating the victims this way. It's a sham.
Outside the report's launch in Dublin, survivors of institutional clerical abuse vented their frustration that it would not lead to the prosecutions of abusers or to the calling to account of the Department of Education, which was ultimately responsible for their welfare. Inside, the Commission was revealing that the great majority of industrial schools inmates were detained because they were needy. On average, they were detained at the age of 8 and released at 17. It says that because they were committed by the courts, they were unfairly stigmatised as criminals, whereas in fact their only crime was poverty. They suffered institutional abuse, mostly at the hands of brothers, nuns and priests. The Department of Education knew that violence and beatings were endemic within the system, but its deferential and submissive attitude towards the congregations compromised its ability to carry out its statutory duty of inspection and monitoring the schools. The report says that sexual abuse was a chronic problem in Artane, which was run by the Christian Brothers and was easily the largest of our industrial schools. It says that perpetrators were able to operate undetected for long periods at the core of institutions, and that they were protected by the religious congregation's culture of secrecy. The Commission dismisses the congregation's claims that they did not know about the recidivist nature of sexual abuse, basing this finding on documentary evidence from the congregation's own files. It finds that religious leaders routinely transferred known offenders and that in many instances their new postings left them free to abuse again.
This is the end of a long journey for us in the Commission, but that is little when set against the long search for justice and recognition by victims of institutional abuse.
The Commission says nuns leaders, along with male religious, neglected their charges in both the classroom and industrial training. In all schools, training served the institutions rather than the children's needs. Child labour was used to reduce the costs of running the industrial schools and in many cases to produce a profit. In the case of the Christian Brothers, for most of the 4 decades under scrutiny, state funding was adequate to provide basic care. In all their schools, brothers in the monastery, even those with little or no involvement in the school, were assigned a stipend from the state's capitation grant. It enabled some communities, notably Artane, Carriglea and Glynn, to invest money in the congregation's general building fund. Money from it was usually spent on mainstream schools. Relatively small sums were spent on industrial schools, and this spending was concentrated in the period immediately before they closed. Joe Little, RTE News.